Hello, everybody. Good morning. Welcome back to our Monday morning coffee talk stream. I'm your host, Samantha with Love.Live.Dance. And today we have a very special guest coming all the way from the West Coast swing community. We have James Cook with us this morning.
Hello,
So,
how's it going?
yeah. For the folks that maybe don't know who you are, what you do, what's the resume look like? Who are you?
Who am I dance wise or who am I philosophically? I don't know.
You can answer that however you would like.
Well, uh, since we're on a dance stream, I'll just go dance wise then. I started dancing in 2006. So I started in Lindy Hop.
Mm,
I, yeah. And then after that, I phased into West Coast Swing because I have a music background. The Lindy Hop music made me want to play in the band instead of actually dance.
okay.
And late night in the place that I started dancing Lindy Hop, they would play more contemporary music, some newer age music, just to mess around with it. And I that music made me want to dance like way more. And so everybody's like, "Oh, you must be a Westie," and I was like, "What's a what?"
What does that mean? Should I be offended?
I know, right? What is that? And so where I started in Idaho, and there was no West Coast swing dancing in Idaho. I shortly after that I moved to Utah, and there was a budding West Coast swing community that had been kind of small for the last 15, 20-ish years. And I stepped in full bore and just started dancing socially. Kept practicing, doing a lot of stuff, and then that was in about 2000, late 2007, 2008 is when I switched over to West Coast Swing. And through that journey, I continued to dance Lindy Hop for a while. I stepped into blues and tango a little bit through that journey, but ultimately stayed really focused and pushing for West Coast Swing. My first competitions was in 2008, 2009. Um, Learned a lot,
Mhm.
started placing in 2010, and then I took about a 3-year break in 2014, 15, 16, but I came back and going strong. So
Nice, nice. And you are, let me see if I remember this correctly. You were considered an all-star level competitor?
yes, that's correct.
So, I definitely want to get into a little bit of like the difference between East Coast and West Coast, what it
Mm.
means when we use those terms, and then like how the competitions are structured differently. Um,
Yeah.
but so you teach full time now, correct? Well, not like
Yes.
now, but
Yeah, not now, but I was teaching full time before. So yeah.
nice, nice, and competing all around the world, obviously before the now times.
Yeah, I was going to be in Korea again for the third year in a row, but that's not happening this year. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But it's awesome that you and your partner Molly get invited to teach workshops all over the world, and you compete all over the world, and you kind of have
Yeah.
that global aspect to your dancing career, which is really something awesome. And I think that's something that not a lot of people get the chance to do. So
Yeah. Yeah,
very, very cool.
been I've been fortunate that way. So I want to continue to grow that, but right now I get to hit pause.
Yeah. Sometimes it's good to slow down. That's the mindset that I've tried to keep for the last
Yeah.
5 weeks is like sometimes it's okay to not go full blast, but I'd like
Yeah.
to be able to at least do something interesting.
I've relearned a lot of music that I used to love but have not heard for a very long time because it's not dance music.
Yes.
So I've re-explored that side of me. So it's been nice. Yeah.
Yeah, the first week that we were both at home, my husband and I stumbled across oh gosh, I'm gonna forget the YouTuber's name. It's two former hip hop rap scene guys, based out of
Okay.
Las Vegas. I think it's Lost in Las Vegas is what it's called.
Okay.
But they are. experiencing things like country music and classic rock and prog rock and death metal for the first time and reacting to it. So we were like, yes, we can listen to Opeth and Meshuggah and
Yeah,
Metallica.
that's great. That's
Um,
so great.
yeah. So if folks are tuning in and you have any questions for James, or if you have any clarifications about things as we go through today, please by all means pop them in the chat. So we were you're part of the West Coast community. I
Mhm.
on my stream have talked about the fact that I'm more of an East Coast dancer, and we did a little bit of basic East Coast swing. What how would you describe the difference between the two? Because I feel like coming from the West Coast end of the world, you're going to describe the difference a little bit different than how a
Yeah,
ballroom dancer would describe the difference.
yeah. So the basic for East Coast, at least how I explain it, is a side to side action.
Hmm.
Where the basic for a West Coast swing is very much a linear action in almost all cases. So,
So that's where you
yeah,
get like the slotted dance or
yes,
the you're dancing on a floor beam kind of concept.
yes. And in the basic level, that's very correct. In the more advanced levels, you can break that a little bit, but it's very, very true for all of the lower level part of the dance. So,
Nice. And I feel like too East Coast swing and jive are very intermixed. So
mhm.
it's much more like high energy, upbeat. I always refer to like if you know Mickey, then you know what an East Coast swing typically sounds like. But that's
Yeah,
not the same case in the West Coast community. The
yeah, no,
variety of
you can.
music you can dance to is much more vast.
Yeah, so the tempos and the variety, the genres are very wide. So you can dance anything from Frank Sinatra, which you would classify as a foxtrot. You can dance to Snoop Dogg, to Katy Perry, to Madonna, to uh, Motown, like
Hmm.
any of the Motown artists, right? So it's like it's so wide. Like every decade has huge chunks of music that you can dance West Coast swing to currently.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like it gives it a much more casual, like social feel. Obviously,
yeah,
competition in West Coast community is very large and it's still a huge aspect of it. But I feel like from like a social dance perspective, there's much less pressure in the early stages to make it also feel like a performance. It feels much more like a
yeah,
conversation.
yeah. That's one of the things that I really love about the community, is where the dance itself is pretty difficult, but the community itself is very open usually, or
Hmm.
um, very forgiving. It's you don't have to do things a certain way. You don't have all this pressure to do things perfectly right out of the gate.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah, and obviously James and I have worked together. Um, Truth be told, he's teaching me how to West Coast swing a little bit better, and I might be trying to bring him to the dark side of smooth ballroom. Um, but something that I like the fact that you refer to a lot is that West Coast is an educated dance. And that might
Mhm,
sound pretentious,
mhm,
but we'll quickly follow that up with kind of the context behind it. In the ballroom community, it is a 50-50 partnership,
mhm,
but it always comes back to there's a lead and there's a follow. And until you get up to the gold or the open level where you're dealing with more choreography and kind of showcase performance, in the ballroom community, the lead sets the dance, and he or she can indicate that they would like to do X, Y, and Z. And the partner has the ability to say, no, I'm not interested in doing that. But the follow doesn't really have a voice that we can be like, I want to do this now because I'm hearing this in the music. That is
yeah.
definitely not the case in West Coast. So, what does it mean to you when you say this is an educated dance?
So there's like three levels to that. And the first level, uh, I could take somebody walking off the street that's never danced in their life, and I can walk them through the basics, but it quickly comes to the point where I'm leading a move or two that are alluded to or that I take off the training wheels on, and they'll be completely lost.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of moves that are like, if I do this, that means obviously that this occurs, where it's not very clear to somebody that's not dance trained,
Mhm.
or that isn't exposed to that regularly. Yeah, as just as a whole. As it gets more in depth, as the the reason why it's I also call it an educated dance is the higher levels, the follow knows how to add their voice to the dance and starts to bend the pattern, saying, "Oh, I'm going to take an extra 2 counts because this thing is happening in the music, and I'm going to make sure that that's visible or enhanced." Or they're going to say, I'm going to follow exactly what you led, except I'm going to do it in this way. I'm not going to mess with the timing, but I'm going to do it this way instead of like the normal way that you would do it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it gives the follow a little bit more ability to put their creative touch on all of the
yes.
patterns and how you're interpreting the music, which is very cool. Um, the other big difference, I think, coming from a ballroom end of the world mindset is how competitions are run. So you have a partner, um, but I guess coming from my end of the world, you're
Hmm.
competing more in like a show dance performance.
Okay.
So so at a high level, when you have an established partnership, you're putting together choreography to a song. So
Mhm.
you know the music, you know what you're supposed to be doing, and then you're the only couple on the floor that's
Yes.
performing.
Yes.
Um, whereas in the ballroom world, we have even at like an intro level, you're put into a partnership or you come with a partnership or you're dancing with your instructor. You have a routine, but you don't know what exact song is getting played, and you're on the floor with anywhere between 6 and 12 other couples at a time that are all trying to navigate and do their own thing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, so the other thing, but the main thing, I think the reason that people are drawn, at least in my opinion, to the West Coast scene is the majority of your competitions are Jack and Jill based.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
So for someone that doesn't know what that term is, what does it mean to have a Jack and Jill competition?
What it means is you enter a competition solo by yourself, and you specify your role. So I could enter as a follow if I wanted to, but I generally want to enter as a lead because I'm much better at leading.
Sure.
Um, so you enter individually, and then you draw partners at random through multiple heats. And you get judged individually to get placed into the final. Now, once you make it to finals, you get judged as a couple, whoever you draw, and that's who you stay with through multiple songs, through each of the heats and each of the what do they call it? Semis, prelims, finals, like all of that.
Hmm.
You get multiple songs, and you're dancing on the floor with sometimes 20 to 30 to 40 couples. So there's a lot of judges that are watching either you or your partnership in the finals. In the finals in the higher divisions, they like to put you out on the floor by yourself in a
Mm.
spotlight. So you get a minute and a half with a song that you didn't choose, and you get to express in front of everybody what that song should be and how to express that and show different unique things to that. Sometimes they don't do that, just kind of depends. It kind of mixes it up a little bit, but
Okay. And I have occasionally stumbled across West Coast swing competition videos on YouTube. Um,
okay.
and I think there was one that Benji Schwimmer was dancing, and the song came on, and he just shook his head, and they changed the song. So, can you veto songs if you're at that level?
Uh, I'll put it this way: since he's champion and he commands a lot of respect in the community, uh, depends on the event. Some events allow you to do that. most of them don't.
Okay.
So it could be the event that had that type of thing. It could also be that he's just swinging his influence
Sure.
and the DJ is like, "Okay, I'll appease you and get flack for it later." So it could be any number of things.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
A different point I wanted to bring up really quick is
Yeah.
the only way in West Coast swing to move up in ranking is through Jack and Jill competition. So you have to be able to be a good leader or a good follower. You have to be able. It's so intertwined with social dancing skills
Hmm.
and technique that you draw people at random. It's not always just, oh, that partner was bad, or it's not always that, oh, we didn't have a great connection, so that dance really sucked. So I'm going to be stuck in the bottom level. No, there's a lot of things that you can do to alleviate that.
Hmm.
There is some luck to that where you can draw some of the better people and get out of certain divisions easier,
Hmm.
but that will also just make you stall longer in the next division if that's the case. So it really, if you want to compete in West Coast swing, it's really um yeah, it the only way to move up is through those competitions. So the higher you get up, the better partners you're getting, but also the more technique that you're being held to. So
Um, am I correct in thinking that you've judged a couple competitions as well?
yeah, yeah.
So, if you are an individual that let's give them the benefit of the doubt is very talented, and does know their stuff, but they're partnered with someone that is struggling. It's just not their day, or it's their first competition, or they just aren't hearing the beat the same way that their partner is. Do you,
Mhm.
as a judge, because you are judging them separately, at least in the preliminary rounds, give the person credit if you can still see, like, if they are dancing their heart out but they are not connected with their partner because
Mhm.
there's something going on with the partnership, do
Mhm.
you give them credit and move them on and see if they can dance better with another partnership, or do you say no, this is the thing with social dancing, you have to dance with the partner you're given?
So that's an excellent question. The thing that I like to talk about when I talk about judging is you're actually judging against who else is on the floor.
Mm,
So if everybody else on the floor sucks and they're really good and they're really bad at partnering, but they're really good,
mm-hmm,
then they might make it through. But if everybody else is at an equal level and
mm-hmm,
they're sucking at partnering,
mm-hmm.
I would be like, no, these other people are better and they're dancing with their partner and they're bringing their partner up instead of throwing them under the bus. Right. So,
I like that. I like that. I think that's a good mindset to have. We have a question from the chat. Does that make competitions super long? So I'm guessing that means from the, I think that was actually from the showcase competition comment. Um, so in the ballroom community, our competitions are anywhere from 1 to 3 days, which is a smaller comp, to a full like 5 day competition. West Coast
mhm.
Swing, what does your typical competition schedule look like?
A typical competition schedule for a very large event would be um, 2 days, 2 days of comps. But the way the schedule works is we actually compact them together. Kind of how it works is usually there's like workshops and whatnot taking up ballroom space from 9 or 10 in the morning whenever they open it up. And then they like usually finish those workshops by about 2 or 3. Usually they have competitions starting at 3 or 4. Um, the competitions actually run pretty quick usually. So say we're talking about the lowest division novice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Back east, they also have a like a pre-novice division that's not required yet, but they call it newcomer.
Okay.
Um, but so say it's like the lowest division, and say there's like 5 heats. They run it pretty efficiently, so they have everybody in the next heat pre-line up, so that when you're out on the floor, you're only taking up about, let's see here, they only play 3 to 5 songs. Um, they only play about 3 to 5 songs per heat, but they only play about a minute to a minute and a half of that, sometimes 2 minutes, depending on what what the judges need if they need more time. But if they need more time, it's usually on the first heat, and then they make the next heats equal to give it a fair shot for the rest of the heats. So say there's like 5 heats for novice with 20 couples on the floor at the same time. There's a judge that's only judging leads, and there's a judge that's only judging follows. Usually you have 3 to 5 judges that are only judging leads, 3 to 5 follows that are only judging follows, and then a chief judge that will also like break ties, that type of thing.
Mm.
So as it goes through, they rotate it. Everything goes in a big circle. You line up the leads, line up the follows in front of the leads real quick, and then break it out to a circle. And then you rotate the circle after every song, and then you rotate the follows forward like a random number. Usually it's anywhere from 1 to 5 partners. So one heat takes generally about 10 to 15 minutes. So, and that's 5 heats. You're looking at 40 minutes tops. And then you would go straight into the next. So it'd be, wow, your cat is having fun over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sorry about all of that. I'm sure there was a
Hey.
large crash on stream as well. Uh,
Oh, wow.
I tried to not have him on my lap, and he's decided that he just needs all of the attention in the world at the moment. So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, to answer your question, if it's super long, our competitions are very, very short compared to ballroom competitions. There's not as much emphasis on pro-ams and um, I don't know. They're just like we only have one dance that we're competing instead of 10 to 20 dances. I don't know how many dances ballroom has to
Many.
compete. Yeah, many.
Yeah,
So we only have one dance to compete, so it goes pretty quick.
right.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So mhm.
Yeah, and I think the other difference is, do you separate it out by age and level, and can competitors also dance in multiple ages and multiple levels, or is it very much like you are what you are?
Excellent question. So we have a couple different. So we have. I'll line out. Here's the mandatory ones that you get points for.
Mm-hmm.
So you have newcomer, which isn't mandatory yet, but it's starting to become mandatory. Then you have novice, intermediate, advanced, all star. On this side, you have ones that are not mandatory, that are just for fun. You have sophisticated, you have to be 35 plus to be able to compete, or masters, you have to be 50 plus to compete.
Hmm.
Um, Now, if you're masters, you can compete in sophisticated as well if you want to. Some events make it so you have to choose which one, but most don't. So if you're a master, you can compete in sophisticated if you want to as well. These 2 divisions over here, sophisticated and master, you can compete in your normal divisions over here because these are the ones that matter and
Mm-hmm.
give you points, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that cuts down to on the number of times that you have to run something, because I think the reason why um, ballroom competitions can take so long is you can have one person that's dancing upwards of 200 or 300 entries because they're dancing all 19 competitive dances plus all 7 social dances, and they're dancing it at 3 different level categories, and they're dancing it at 2 different age categories, so they're dancing everything 6 times what was it, like 27, 25 dances. And
That's
it's just,
crazy.
yeah, it gets silly after a while.
That's crazy. Yeah. Here it's just one dance. And I see the other question in chat. Do you advance individual people or couples? You only advance in Jack and Jill's by an individual
Mm.
basis. So the judges are judging you individually. But once you make it to finals, then everything's placed as a couple. So you either place or you don't place in finals as a couple.
And
So.
you're getting a different partner every single round until finals, right?
Yeah, you're getting so in the prelim rounds, you're getting a different partner every single round and every single song, no matter what. So in prelims, if they play 4 songs, you get 4 different partners. If they play 5 songs, you get 5 different partners. Yeah.
I like that because I feel like that gives you as an individual the most opportunity to show what you're capable of. And I
Yeah.
think it kind of goes along with the question that just popped up. Does that mean that you could end up with a mismatch of leads and follows? Yeah. But, well, in the initial round, I imagine.
Yeah, in the initial 2 rounds sometimes. Um, Basically, if you most of the time it's leads being short, so leads just kinda know that to stay in the ballroom. A lot of times heat sheets are posted beforehand, so the leads will know if they have to dance multiple times. Occasionally in the higher divisions, sometimes the follows are short, so the follows have to know to stay in the ballroom, but you already generally will know if you need to be in the future heats. And if you need to be in the future heats, generally the judges already know that and they won't even look at you in those in the second time you're out there. Occasionally they will if you're really close tie between you and somebody else that was in a different heat.
Mm.
But most of the time they won't even look at you. Especially if it's like an entire heat where the leads have already been judged. A lot of times those leads, the judges that are judging the leads won't even look. They won't even watch. They'll just stand and just wait for the heat to be over.
Wow.
Yeah. And then as it gets closer to finals, they'll tailor it so that it's an even match for leads and follows, just to make it easier to get into finals
Makes sense.
or easier for the judges to judge and to make sure that just to kind of see what the playing field is. So,
Cool. Cool.
yeah.
So shifting away from competitive dance for a
Okay.
couple minutes, just in case we're driving people crazy with all this shop talk and technical talk.
Yeah.
Um, what does the West Coast community in Utah look like? Because you said when you originally started, it was very small. There wasn't a booming community, and now
Mhm.
I feel like everywhere you go, there's a West Coast swing night. Like it's a thing that.
Yeah, it's taken a long time to get the community to where it's at. Um, when I started, there was only 2 nights that you could dance West Coast. There was a Tuesday night and a Friday night, and they were both at the Murray Art Center,
Okay.
which has since been closed down. Um, but the Tuesday night was really just kind of a lesson night, and then people would stick around and dance for a bit because music would be playing for another hour and a half, 2 hours afterwards. But most people would show up regularly for the lesson from Pam Giovacini um, on that Tuesday night, and then Friday night was run by a few different people. Um, and on average, the number of people that would show up would be anywhere from 30 to 50 people around there. And since the Murray Art Center had been there for so long, the local community kind of knew it as a place to go as like a date night type thing. So we'd get a lot of people that would show up and get exposed to the dance and show up for a little bit, but not really be invested in the dance.
Mm-hmm.
So the local high school would have different things that would bring people out or have a requirement for their own social dance night that they would have to go out and social dance.
Oh, nice.
And so, but that'd been running for like 10, 15 years. And so people over the course of that time kind of knew the Murray Art Center as a place to go to social dance or to take a date or do different things, just like something to do for a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a chunk of that community was based off of that, of a lot of non-serious dancer or like non-actual West Coast swing core people, if that makes
Sure.
sense. Over the course of several years, it's expanded to where there's now um, 5 different nights that you can dance West Coast. With so it went from like 30 to 50 West Coast swing dancers to now we're, if I count somebody that shows up like at least once a month, you'd be at 400 to 500 dancers now.
Yeah, that's a
West Coast
huge
swing.
growth over
Yeah,
any amount of time.
yeah, yeah. So it's been quite awesome to be a part of that growth and to kind of see that happen. So.
Well, and I think something really cool, again, not being a member of the West Coast swing community, I'm kind of seeing this from the outside perspective. I think something really cool that's come up in the last couple of years is the J&T performance team.
Oh yeah, Jordan and
Um,
Tatiana. Swing
Yeah.
dance teams, yeah.
So I think from like a ballroom perspective, having them perform at Utah Star Ball this last year, and they've come to the studio a couple of times to perform, is a really great way to expose non-Westies to, oh, this is another avenue of getting into it. Or if I'm social dancing on a Friday night or a Tuesday night, I could potentially work to this. And I think it's much more tangible than you can come to a competition and dance with complete strangers, just like you do on Tuesday night. But this time you'll be judged.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It gives it a little bit more of a open avenue for people, especially that have like a familiar ballroom background,
Hmm.
to where, oh, this is choreo, and I can learn this choreo, and this will help me learn the dance.
Yep.
It's very much that way. There's there's generally two different levels. There's varsity and there's junior varsity. So the JV team, anybody can get on. The varsity team, you kind of have to prove yourself a little bit because it's a lot harder movements and a lot harder. Um, to execute. Usually it's faster tempos or crazy tricks and different things that you can do in the dance. So
And that choreo in the music is being set by Jordan and Tatiana every season, right?
yeah, every season 6 months. This most recent season has been extended,
Mm.
so it's gonna shift how the seasons work in the future, I guess, and the timings. But yeah.
Very cool. So, because you're teaching,
Hmm.
or are, it's this weird like Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, how are you encouraging your students to practice during this time? And are you doing options like Skype or Zoom lessons to kind of check in with people?
I'm just generally touching base with people chat wise. I generally I let them reach out to me if they want a lesson or not. I'm very hands off that way. I just kind of expect most of my students to be able to do because I've already given them solo drills and solo practice. I check in with them occasionally to be like, "Hey, are you doing your drills? Are you actually like finishing like your homework?" Because if you're able to continue to do this, you're gonna see improvement and growth.
Mm-hmm.
If you're using this time to just kind of slack and not do anything, that's going to be really apparent the next time we have a lesson or the next time I see you out at a social dance, right? So
Yep.
it's kind of they kind of know that every time I'm out at a dance and they're there, I generally will do kind of a litmus test already with kind of what they're learning, what they're retaining, what they still need to work on, that type of thing. So yeah, it's not from like a judgment standpoint. It's more of how can I help them grow better or grow
Hmm.
faster standpoint. But it's something that I can't really turn off anyway, like at any point. So
Yeah, and I think that is something that a lot of instructors would echo as well. I know for me especially, I'm sending students like, okay, this is what I want you to be working on with your feet, and you can do it in your kitchen, um, or if you're sitting at your desk and you're waiting for that next conference call, like stretch and lift yourself, and am I
yeah,
using my lats, and just sit in your chair and make sure that everything's moving together. So there's a lot of individual stuff that I think as instructors we're hoping our students are doing at home during this time, but it'll be really up to them. And I think you made a really good point that we do see our students out on the social dance floor or practicing, and yes, you're going to catch us like looking you up and down, and maybe we'll go, or or when we see you do that, we'll look inquisitively. I just remembered this is eventually going to be a podcast, and those movements are not going to translate. But judging a little bit, and it's not from a I'm so disappointed or gosh, why won't they do X, Y, and Z? It's always from a okay, clearly that thing that I mentioned in passing a month ago hasn't taken hold. So,
yeah,
how can I reintroduce it in the next lesson in a way that maybe it'll be incorporated a little bit better? Or,
yeah,
okay, we tweaked X, but now I'm seeing an issue with Y. So I need to go back and revisit the thing that we changed so that it doesn't start impacting all of these other things. Um,
Yeah. For me, I'm usually a little bit more blunt, where I'm like, "Oh, they clearly didn't get this concept. Let's hit them over the head with a board with that concept." Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Like, okay, your toes are still turned in. How do I fix this without being the mean Russian ballet teacher with the stick?
Oh,
That's just
I flip the switch and go mean Russian instructor all the time. Yeah, it's
I
great.
get I get so much flack from some of my students because there's a dowel rod, or not a dowel rod. There's a broom handle in
Hmm.
the studio that we kind of refer to as the teaching stick, and
Okay.
it's never, it's not what you think. Uh, yeah, no, it's not to beat students with. It's to have them hold and elevate their frame. Or,
Yeah.
we'll grab a shoebox and have them put it between the partnership, and if the shoebox drops, that's something that I need to take a look at. But it's
Yeah.
like it's just a method. It's just a method for you to change your perspective and for me to make you feel a little bit awkward and silly for a couple minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually use all sorts of weird things. Like I'm holding up a water bottle right now for the future podcast, so you guys can, and it's mostly full, but at the moment, but I'll use this to be able to make it so, um, to try to set muscles in the right place. So if you're holding it from your back versus holding it through your shoulder or your arm, like I use objects a lot, and when I teach, to try to help my students shift how they hold their frame, or where they
Mhm.
hold their frame from, or how much force they need to hold tone for, to create different movements at different tension levels and different acceleration points, that type of thing. So yeah.
Well, and I think that makes an otherwise intangible concept tangible, right? Um, for those that watch the Wednesday and Friday teaching stream, my husband Matt always gives me a little bit of flack because I'll go into what he refers to as like artsy hippie nonsense, where I'm like,
Mm.
I need to feel a light coming from your sternum. It's like, what the
Oh
heck does that mean? It's like, all right, well, yeah, if I make you hold a band and stretch it across from elbow to elbow, you're gonna feel real quick if your lats are engaged or not.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Occasionally I have a few literal students like that, so I turn very literal for them very quickly. So um
Yeah,
but I
the big shiny red apple doesn't work for everybody.
exactly, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, using one of my own teaching word isms against me. I see how it is.
Hmm. Only because you have said that to me a couple times now, and
Yeah.
I am switching between the as a student brain going, this is just silly nonsense, and the teacher brain going, okay, yeah, no, I get what he's coming from.
And oh, this totally works. I need to use this myself. And
I wouldn't take
yeah,
it that far, but
that's great. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so what are you looking forward to most post current situation?
Uh, Probably just social dancing, honestly. Yeah.
Do
Yeah, I'm looking
you
forward.
do you have a timeline in your head for when you expect social dancing to come back? Because I imagine that social dancing is going to be not the first thing, right? I have a
Yeah.
feeling that we're going to get back to private lessons first for a while, and social
Yeah.
dancing is going to be a little while off still.
I have a feeling it won't be till July or maybe after July before we'll start to see social dancing.
You're much more optimistic than I am.
Yeah. Um, yeah. It might end up being August, but I really think it'll be July is when we'll start to see it happening.
I'd like
Yeah.
that. I'd like to go back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. That'd be nice.
Yeah. I know that you and Molly were planning on traveling a whole bunch and competing a whole bunch. From the competition end of the world and the workshop end of the world, the competitions that were scheduled for March, April, May of this year have obviously been canceled
Oh,
or
yeah.
postponed.
Yeah.
Um, do you have any guidance about like when are they rescheduling for the fall, or are they just pushing back to 2021?
Most have pushed to 2021. There's been a few that have postponed to like November, December timeframe. So that might end up being postponed even more. We don't know yet, but most everything has been closed and just um, pushed to next year. So
Yeah,
there's been one or two. But yeah.
same in the ballroom world. Um, do we think that non-touching stuff might become more popular, like Zumba
No,
type things? No.
no. Honestly, I think that once everything goes back to normal, everybody's going to crave that physical connection more than not,
Yeah,
in my
I would agree with that. I think there's going to be a little bit of a struggle for a couple of months, where things have opened up and restrictions have lessened, and we do crave that and we want to get back to it so quickly. But I think for a lot of us, we're going to have this voice in the back of our head that says, but you still want to avoid, like, you still want to wash your hands compulsively. You still probably are going to want to wear a mask. You might not be as willing to switch partners as regularly and as frequently. I think there's going to be this little bit of like putting the toe back in the water, to kind of see what's
yeah,
possible and what's comfortable.
yeah, yeah. I think at first it'll be definitely a little bit of testing the waters at first, but if everything kind of just fades away, then it'll come back. The one of the challenges that I face that I'll be facing in my group classes um, is it's pretty much mandatory. Everybody rotates. It's not exactly mandatory. I always leave it as an optional, but it's socially I've cultivated a community mindset of everybody rotates. If you rotate, you get better faster, feeling different connections and different leading or following styles. It pushes you to get better at your role. Um, and I think it'll be a while before we're able to get back to that. So that'll be a challenge that I'll have to recultivate in my group classes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also just going to apologize that apparently someone's decided that now's the time to mow the lawn. So if you get a lot of background noise, I apologize. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, I think there's going to be, especially on the part of instructors, I think there's going to be a little bit of like a transition period where we're like, okay, we're so glad that you're back,
hmm,
but we're going to understand that we're all trying to now navigate in this
yep.
hypochondriac world.
Yeah. A couple thoughts that we're having right now is when we start group classes back, I think we'll start it up with a limited class size
Mm-hmm.
and have multiple different hour signups. Since we're not going to have social dance anymore,
Yeah.
we can have multiple different hours of group classes running. That'll be the same material, but it'll be limited on class size, and we'll keep teaching as long as we have signups for those class times. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Kind of limiting the group class size to 10 or 12 people, whatever the new minimum is. Um,
Mhm.
and then just offering more classes
Yeah.
during the week to kind of make up for the difference. I like that. I think that's a good workaround. And that's a good, solution during this to kind of get people back into it.
Yeah.
Nice. From a non-dance perspective, what are you
Okay.
doing? What is keeping you busy? What are you watching? What are you playing? I
Um,
was teasing you earlier because you've got the streamer set up, so obviously you game a little bit.
yeah. No, I play pretty much every video game under the sun. I've been playing a lot of Valorant right now. I was able to get a beta key. Um, Valorant is a Counter-Strike source or Counter-Strike Global Offensive like remake, but done by a different gaming company. Um, it comes from the same guys that run League of Legends.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a competitive shooter, essentially like a tactical shooter. Uh, so yeah, different teams, different every round goes pretty quick because there's like a quick objective that you either do or you don't do. But you run multiple rounds to be able to win the whole game essentially. Um, that I've been playing a lot of that. I also play Hearthstone, World of Warcraft occasionally. Um,
It has been so
Diablo
long
3.
since I've played WoW. I think the
Yeah.
problem is because I play it in like such short bursts that I
Mm.
don't have the annual membership or the monthly subscription. So every time I
Yep.
log in, I'm starting at a level 1 character, and by the time that I get through the starting zone, I'm like, "All right, I'm done. That was fun."
Yep. 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 Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. I my characters that I have been going for so long that I just log in and I already have all the stuff from the previous expansion, so I'm able to start earlier or like at a more advanced place. So
Nice.
it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Been watching a decent amount of shows. Um, yeah, I I watched like 3 different animes all back to back, and I don't know. Yeah, I usually don't watch animes, but these ones were pretty good. So
Nice. Nice. I caught up on Next in Fashion on Netflix, and
okay.
then stumbled into Baby Ballroom, which is both fantastic and horrifying. Um, have not watched Tiger King. I've decided I'm just not going to watch it.
Yeah, me too. I'm totally not gonna watch Tiger King. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then trying to catch up on like a lot of YouTubey stuff. We've been playing a lot of Minecraft with some friends across the country.
Okay.
So watching all of the Hermie Craft stuff on YouTube is,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Minecraft
my
is one of
nerd
those
niche.
games that I never really got into. Um, but I would see people build crazy awesome things with it. And so I always was intrigued by that, but I also knew how much time that would take and I was like, I got other time. I got other games to for that time, you know. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is definitely a time sink. And if you aren't playing modded Minecraft, it's very open-ended. It's almost overwhelmingly open-ended in that
Okay.
you don't have objectives, you don't really have a quest. I mean, there is a way to beat the game, but it's not intended for that purpose. Um,
Mm,
I see it more as like I just need to go and punch trees for like 3 hours, and I'll be happy.
yeah.
Yeah. From the comment section, Riot Games, I think, was the developer of the game that
Yes.
you were talking about.
Yeah. Valorant and League of Legends, yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
I actually have a dance friend that works for them, so it's kind of cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Dancers everywhere.
It's true. That is true.
Yeah. So what else would you like to chat about before we call the podcast or stream? What else do you want to plug? What else has been on your mind? What else is new in the world of James?
New in the world of James. I had my birthday, so I have a quarantine birthday. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
fun. It's probably the most different, weird birthday I've ever had.
You
So
had you had a car parade drive past your house, right?
yeah, that was pretty uninvited, but intriguing, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
It
It
means
was.
that people care.
Yeah, I all I knew was there was a delivery, and that's all the information that was told to me. So yeah. Um, I had a hat on and I was very unkempt. I hadn't even really gotten ready for the day, and I was like, "Okay, this is awkward."
Well, at least you thought to put pants on. Um,
It's true, true.
I
Yeah.
don't remember what state it was, but some state governor had to come out and be like, you have to put on pants if you're going to your mailbox.
Oh, okay.
Like they had to
That's
issue a statewide announcement reminder to everybody that they have to put on pants if you're going outside your house.
oh man. Well, I'm a culprit.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
That's right, folks. We're dealing with quarantine by just Pooh Bear in it.
Yeah. I will say I've had to do my laundry a little bit more recently, like more often than normal, because I'm not wearing more than half of my clothes.
Yeah.
I just wear my indoor PJ stuff. So I've had to be doing a lot more laundry just to like keep up with that, just because I'm used to being able to go a little bit longer because I'm wearing more of my clothes.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're doing laundry more frequently and washing the dishes more frequently because we're
Yep.
making coffee in the house for the first time every single morning. Because
Yeah.
normally Nat goes off to work and I go to the studio, and not a dish is used in our house until about 8 o'clock at night. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, being in the house means you cook more often. Go figure.
I know, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good times.
Good times. Good times. But the Utah air quality is much better now.
I know, right? And there was actually a photograph taken of
LA.
uh yeah, like just like cities around the world. Like China and India have horrible pollution problems. And then just seeing the difference, you're just like, oh, maybe we should go to a different way of transportation because that would save a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and just not spending money on gas for the last month has been an interesting
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, that's saved a decent chunk of money. Yeah. Granted, I don't have the income flow right now, but it's kind of saving on that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Um, did you have the earthquakes this week? Did you feel the two aftershocks?
Yep, I've so oddly enough, yesterday morning, about every 30 minutes to an hour, there would be minor rumblings for about 3 to 4 hours here.
Wow.
And then in the evening it started again. But it's like so small, like sitting in my chair, like I can feel it like just move a little bit, but it's never like enough to be serious. So I'm just like, okay, this is awkward. And then yeah, it's been happening for like the last 5 days straight, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like my body has tuned out that at this point. So unless it's above a 3 or a 4, I don't feel it. And I just try not to acknowledge it. Like, okay, I think anytime that happens, I just tune my brain into like, well, clearly I need to eat something because my blood sugar is low and I'm getting shaky. It's not the ground, it's not the house, it's not the floor, it's me.
It's never the ground. The ground has always been there.
Yeah, yeah,
Denial. It's great.
yes, yeah. Just living in a world of denial. It's coping.
Yeah, that's great. Uh,
Yeah. Well, it doesn't look like we have any follow-up questions from chat. Um, so how can people find you if they are interested in following your competition journey, or if they want to get lessons on the books for when all of this calms down? How can they find you?
so really, I'm mainly just out of Facebook. So reach out to me on Facebook. But if sometimes Facebook is weird and funky, I also have an email. But my Facebook ending. So if you just do, let's see here. So if you just go to facebook.com and then just do a forward slash, my URL is james.cook.wcs.
Yep, and that should be the link, or at least the at that is below James's photo right now on the stream. So if you're tuning into the stream, it should be right under your bright shining face, and then I'll make sure to include it in the show notes when we post
Cool.
this everywhere that we post it. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you are currently, can I say, based out of Ballroom, Utah?
Yes, I teach all my private lessons out of there. So
Yep. And prior to this, and hopefully after this, there's a West Coast group class and eventually social night on
hmm
Tuesday nights out of Ballroom, Utah as well. So,
yeah, that
yeah.
starts at 7, unless things change. Coming back into things that might be changing. But yeah, the if for some reason the Facebook link doesn't work, you can also reach out via my Gmail address, which is jamesc.swing@gmail.com.
And
So
I'll make sure to put that in the post notes.
cool.
Yeah. Um, what else? Anything else you want to talk about?
Samantha mentioned earlier that she's taking lessons from me of how to be better at West Coast. She didn't mention how frustrated I am about learning ballroom. It's it's kind of a nightmare. Yeah.
I can assure
West
you
Coast
that
swing.
the frustration that you feel about ballroom is the same frustration that I feel about West Coast.
Well, the thing is I I get to know one dance, which is West Coast.
Yeah.
However, there's like four variants of it depending on the type of music you're dancing to. At my level, there's 4 to 5 to 6 variants that you kind of have to know really well. Um, but they're all West Coast swing and they're all like shades of the same dance. And there's minor nuances because of XYZ. We can get into that. But um, in in ballroom, you guys have so many freaking dances, and like one completely conflicts with a different one. And it's like, oh, this one we do have to have a toe lead or a heel lead or a oh no, this one we're actually doing this instead of this opposite thing. So it's kind of a nightmare to kind of keep it all straight. Like there are things that I can do, except I just can't do them all at the same time yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's I if you started your dance journey with one very specific dance style,
Hmm.
suddenly getting thrust into this world where it's like, yeah, there are 19 different competitive dances and they all have their own patterns and timing and footwork. And there are some through lines, but you aren't going to see those through lines for like the first 3 months. Um, I can see how that can be very overwhelming.
Yeah, it was a bit crazy.
Well, and you're working with me on smooth, but then you're also working with Dallas on rhythm.
Yep. Yep.
So what dances have you learned so far? What dances are you working on?
So I can't say that I've learned any dances so far. Um, I've I've become accustomed to the concepts that are prevalent in uh let's see here, cha-cha, foxtrot, uh a little bit of tango. What else? There was another one. Waltz. I hate waltz. I still hate waltz. I've hated waltz ever since I started dancing, straight up.
Okay, okay. I know we were winding down, but let's get into this.
Okay.
Because I want to know why. So what you've mentioned in the past that you are frustrated when you watch a social dance waltz and you're like
Yeah.
it could be more. And I
Yeah.
totally get that. But why do you, is there are there other reasons why you find waltz so
So
frustrating?
So if you turn waltz into being very pedestrian, it's literally walking down the freaking street. There's no nothing. Yeah, it's just walk, 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 walk. I like it doesn't make sense to me. Like, and then they're like, "Oh, but we're gonna make this so complicated that you can't do it." Yeah. So, but I have watched like world champions dance waltz, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, but everybody else, it's like, eh, I'd rather watch anything but this right now. Yeah.
You're really selling people on on taking ballroom dance lessons.
Well, from like this, my perspective. Okay, sorry. Maybe I should tone it back a little bit
No,
for
no, no, no.
the.
I think that is valid. I think that is 100% valid. I think a lot of people get into the ballroom world and they're like, "Yeah, I want to learn waltz because waltz looks so easy." And then they get into lesson two, where your instructor is like, okay, we're going to talk about rise and fall and using your ankle and using your knee, and then the difference between foot rise and body rise. And that's going to all commence on the half a beat before one. And then you have to rise at your highest peak in between two counts, but there's not a step there. You just have to create it with your body. And the eyes start rolling back in their head.
Yep. Yep.
But
And then
that's,
they're just like, fine, we're just gonna do waltz, just walking down the street style. And then all the instructors want to shoot their brains out.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, but to
Yeah.
be fair, that reaction and that frustration is the exact same feeling that I had when I walked into my very first West Coast class a decade ago. Um, and we did a sugar push, a sugar tuck, which are both
Okay.
6 count phrases, and they're
Yeah.
very logical. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. That's not a problem. And then like, okay, we're gonna do an 8 count whip now. And I'm like, wait, so you have two different timings? Uh huh. How do I know as a follow which one is which? You don't until you're in it, and then you're just expected to do it. Like,
Yeah.
but but why? But how? But I need to know if I'm going forward on this count, I'm doing X, and I'm going back on this count, I'm doing Y. No, that's not how West Coast works. Oh,
Yeah.
and by the way, you're a lady, so please put whatever styling you want. And the lead is just going to lead you on the first 2 counts, and then you've got 4 extra counts to do whatever the heck you want.
Mhm. Yeah. Artistic freedom. Yes. Yeah. It's good times.
I would much rather listen to someone be like, no, you are rising too early on your two and. It needs to be two and, not two and. It's too short.
Yeah. I I very much teach beginning classes the way you would prefer, but it's been quite a while since I've taught beginning classes because most everybody wants me to teach advanced classes because I can push the advanced students a lot easier than some of the other instructors locally. So
Do you
it
find
would be nice to be able to teach. Yeah. Yeah. What's up?
do you find a freedom in that? So like at the point that you are teaching a lot of intermediate and advanced classes, when you go back to a beginner, me, and you have to teach like they have no knowledge whatsoever, do you find that freeing or do you find that frustrating?
Uh, Oddly enough, I don't find it either. I In a private lesson setting, I actually wipe the slate clean and I just look at what is relevant to them in the moment and where they need to get to for their next big step. So whatever's lacking, I just make sure they understand what that is. I approach my teaching in a private lesson setting as what are the big boulders that I need to focus on that will give them the most movement forward when they achieve that concept. And I've learned to ignore small pebbles that a lot of other instructors will get caught up on. Oh, your foot strike is happening on the wrong count. Well, if they do this other thing, that's going to happen naturally. And this other thing fixes like 10 other things that are happening right now. So we're going to focus on this big boulder to then over time, if those other small things are still taking place in the next couple weeks or so, or whenever we have another lesson, if those other things are still happening while they've fixed this big boulder issue, then I might start to bring up the smaller points. But most of the time I just focus on those um big overarching issues in a private lesson setting. In a group class setting, it's very much different where
Mm-hmm.
I view it as, okay, how do I get everybody in this group class on the same track and progressing, not too slow and not too fast?
Yep.
And And in a group class setting, I basically focus on the middle of the class. And when I reach a mid saturation point, I move on. And I'm not going to stay on the subject until everybody gets it because occasionally I have a few students that, if that would be the case, we'd be still on the first pattern for the whole hour, which I will not stay that long.
Yeah,
on that. Yeah, just
absolutely.
it's not fair to the higher end of the students. So
Yeah, and I think that's a
essentially,
thing that people really need to understand about group classes is you might have a quality instructor in a group class, but you will not often get quality instruction from a group class.
you
Um, if you are looking to find the best way to progress you individually or you as a couple, you have to invest in private lessons. Group classes are very much okay. I'm going to come in with a game plan. I'm going to teach a pattern or I'm going to teach a concept. And when the middle of the class has figured it out, I'm going to move on. And if you're at the
know,
high end or the low end of that class, it is not going to serve you as well. You can still find nuggets of information, like by all means, like if there's a master class or a group class in your area, go because it's still a great experience. Um,
yeah,
but if you are wanting to take your dancing to the next level, one private lesson is going to give you the same information that 10 group classes would give you.
yep, if not more. Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
most of my students that take a private lesson for their first time, they leave. I don't do this on purpose, but I want to make sure, like, I treat most of my students as being very intelligent and being very proactive.
mhm.
So I give them more information rather than less,
Yep.
and I expect them to work on it. So I give them a ton of information, and I'm like, "Okay, these are the solid takeaways, and this is what I want you to work on, so that next time we can cover new material." Right? So it's yeah, I the first time somebody's been through a private lesson with me, their eyes like their brain is like shut off from overload, and their eyes are like the size of like dinner plates, and they're like
Yeah. I encourage my students to either bring a notepad with them or like videotape. I'm fine if a student wants to videotape part of their lesson, because I feel the exact same way. Like I'm gonna give you as much information as I can in this 55-minute period, and I don't want to treat it like a practice.
Yep.
I get I have a number of social students that this is their date night. This is their day away from the kids. This is like the 1 hour that they have to themselves every week. And it's just
Mhm.
fun and it's just a practice. And we're not going to make huge progress every lesson. I get that. But for the students that are highly motivated and they've set goals and they're like, I want to compete here or I want to perform here in X amount of time or I want to get to the point where I don't have to worry about what pattern I'm going to lead next on a social dance floor. It's like, okay, be ready cuz you are going to get all of the information in my brain that I can give you in this time and you're going to remember 2% of it if you don't write it down.
Yep.
And I'm going to expect you to work on it for the next week and already have it mostly figured out and in your muscle memory by the next time I see you.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah, high goals for teachers. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then immediately having the voice in the back of your brain that's like, okay, I understand why you didn't get to this level. I'm not disappointed, but we'll go
Yeah.
over it again.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, you don't like waltz. You've made that very clear.
Yeah.
Foxtrot versus tango. Do you have a preference between the two, or are you still trying to figure out both?
Still trying to figure out both. Since I do country two-step, foxtrot feels weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've acutely learned the difference between foxtrot and country two-step.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that if you got nothing else out of that foxtrot lesson, it was that the two are not the same.
Yeah. Um, some of the moves can be the same, but how you get into them and out of them are completely different. Um, yeah. That would be like so in East Coast swing, there's actually very similar moves
Mhm.
in West Coast,
Yeah.
but they're led completely different, right? So that'd be kind of the same concept
Yeah.
of
I
yeah,
think you figured out really quickly that if you don't remind me ahead of time or you don't overlead what is it, a left side pass, um, in a way that I turn to you, I'm going to treat it like a throw out from East Coast swing every single
Yeah.
time. The hand is
Yep.
going to come up and over, and I'm just going to run forward. I'm not going to remember that I'm supposed to curve my step and cross my feet.
Yep. And stay facing your or like torso alignment to your partner throughout. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's
Yep.
just tango. I like tango. Of all of the dances, I think tango is probably my favorite at the moment with smooth. Um,
Okay.
but I feel
So
like beginners tend to not like it in the beginning.
my challenge is I've actually done Argentine tango
Mm,
for about a year. So this is like I have to think of it as a completely different dance because it quite frankly is.
yeah,
It has a similar bass step, but that's about it. It's yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh, I try to tell students all the time, Argentine tango, you are connected in an A frame. So
Mm-hmm.
you're connected at the
Yep.
top and your feet are farther apart.
Yep.
In American and international tango, which are the ballroom end of the world, you're connected in a Y frame. So your bases are very close to each other and your top lines are very far apart.
Yeah. Yeah. It creates a completely different feel and a completely different um movement set because of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it makes a whole lot of sense for you to cross train West Coast with Argentine more so than ballroom because I feel like the lead and the conversation aspect of those two dances are more closely aligned.
Yes. However, there's other challenges that arise because of cross training with Argentine tango, because then Argentine nobody ever looks at um, aesthetics of the
Mm,
dance. It's all about the feel of the dance and
mm-hmm.
how everything's created. Um, and the connection points in Argentine are not at all similar to West Coast,
Right.
but the communication and the pass through and the play interplay between the partners, that's about the only thing that's really similar.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, like there's ways you can modify each of the dances to become more similar to each other, but then somebody that's a true form of West Coast or a true form of like a pure dancer that only dances one or the other will be able to tell that you're definitely not doing something that's common,
yeah,
or like they're like, oh, you definitely have a flair of something else in your dancing that's not what I'm used to, right? So
definitely.
yeah.
And I will say, and this is not meant to scare anybody that is thinking about coming into any one of these communities. We are very open, we are very welcome, but something that you kind of have to understand is there is a West Coast swing community. There
Hmm.
is a Lindy swing community. There is
Hmm.
an Argentine tango community. There is
There's a
a blues community, a country community,
yeah.
a salsa and bachata community, although those two are now splitting, which I find
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's just ballroom. And
Yep.
within the ballroom umbrella, you get people that are like, oh, I'm an international Latin dancer, or oh, I'm an American rhythm dancer. And you get like these sub communities within ballroom. But for the most part, it's ballroom. And then you
Yeah.
have all of these little social communities. And
Yeah.
people within their community get a little intense at times about
Yeah.
people from other communities coming in and trying to dance that
Yeah.
style. Like I
Yeah.
feel like as a ballroom dancer, I get called out a lot in West Coast and salsa for like, you're dancing that like a mambo, or you dance that too much like an East Coast ballroom dancer. And it's like, but I'm trying.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 There's always the higher level dancers from the this is gonna sound weird, but a lot of the lower levels, like social dancers in all of the social communities. So all of those other ones that you named, not the ballroom community, but all of those other like social dance communities,
Hmm.
there's always going to be the top level dancers that are going to be frustrated or not want to dance with you because you don't fit their mold, and they're not going to find their own type of enjoyment out of dancing with you,
Hmm.
which they just need to get over themselves, in my opinion.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
Yeah. But there's also going to be a larger chunk of that community is going to be totally happy dancing with you because A, you actually understand the basic concepts of the dance, and B, you can execute and have at least a base level communication and lead follow play with what's going on. So yeah, like, you're always going to find those purists or those extremists that are chasing. In reality, they can only get maybe one or two of those dances that they're seeking a night, and they're dancing with you out of pity or out of hope or out of whatever. I don't get it.
Yeah.
uh, I used to be that type of a dancer, but now I just see where you're at, and I'm just like, well, let's see if I can modify what I'm doing to be able to allow XYZ to occur, right? So
Hmm.
it becomes more of a challenge to me to be able to see if I can create movements out of you that you never thought you could do, that
Yeah.
type of thing, right? Yeah.
And I think that's a good mindset for dancers at any level to have is, you know, we all had to start off somewhere,
Hmm.
and we only got to the level that we're at because we had some positive reinforcement along the way, and we had someone that was better that kind of gave us a hand up and was like, here, I'll help you. If you're a purely social dancer, you probably had a lead or a follow that was like, okay, I see what I'm working with. Let's get you to the point where you're confident that you can dance this at your level and look really good doing it, or
Yeah.
have fun on a social night. Um, I would not be teaching or dancing if I had had someone early on that was like, well, you don't know your left foot from your right foot, so why are you even trying? And I'm sure you have similar stories of being early on and having kind of that positive, like, okay, I'll help you along. I've walked this path before. I know what's ahead of you.
Hmm.
Here's my kind of golden tips to getting through it. So I feel like if you are a social dancer or a competitive dancer, like, just leave the ego at the door. We get it. You're good. You're not the best in the world. And if you are the best in the world, you could still be better. So
Yeah,
so
it's
help the
true.
people behind you.
It's true. And even the best in the world will generally help people instead of be arrogant about it. So it's
Absolutely.
uh the only reason I'm in the dance community is the third week I showed up social dancing. This guy that had taught the beginning class, like, I would show up to the beginning Lindy Hop dance, the beginning Lindy Hop lesson. And I showed up and I was a part of the lesson for this. It was my third week in a row. But after the lesson, I would stay for the social dance, but I would sit in the corner and watch because I knew where I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
or I knew what the dance was capable of, and I knew I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was more frustration and knowing that I couldn't do what I wanted, or I couldn't do what I wanted to envision myself doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended up being where I would sit, not because I was socially awkward or anything. It was because I was frustrated that I couldn't do what I could see the potential of the dance being. Um, this guy that had taught the beginning class, he came up to me and he's like, "You're not going to be able to get better by sitting and watching.
Yep.
You have to just get out and do it." And so he grabbed a follow and he's like, "Just dance. It's okay. It's okay to be bad at this dance." Because he understood where I was coming from. Just already, I don't know how he understood where I was coming from, but he knew that I was functional, and he knew that I was not shy, and he knew that I was just who I was because he saw me interact in the beginning classes. So that's the only reason I'm still dancing today, is because of him. So, and I don't even know his name. I just,
Just
yeah,
some guy. Just some
yeah,
guy.
just some guy. Yeah,
I love that. I
yeah.
love that. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
I think the big tip that I would want to give every beginning social dancer is just say yes. Like, obviously,
Mhm.
don't say yes if it's creepy or uncomfortable or not safe, but if you are in a safe space around safe people, just say yes. Just
Yeah.
get out and move and try, because it's mental and it's muscle memory. And if you
Yeah.
are not actively dancing, you're not building muscle memory, so you won't reach whatever potential you're trying to get to.
The growth is happening through experience. And another way to say the word experience is also failure. Most people are afraid of failing at something, which that's the way most of us learn is through failure and trial and error, right? So trial and error, there's more error than there is success,
Mm-hmm.
but you learn more from failing than you learn from having successes, because then you're not understanding the parameters yet of what that success is until you fail to learn where that true success is, instead of just blindly thinking you're great, right? So it's
Yep.
um yeah, it's yeah, I don't know,
Yeah,
my 2 cents.
absolutely. Yeah, don't play it safe. Don't play it
Yeah.
safe and say yes.
Hmm.
There you go. Awesome.
All of my students that grow the most are the ones that are unapologetic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a weird way to say it, but they're always the ones that are, they have a goal in mind,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to it, and they accept their own failure, but they also accept that they're moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they learn from it, and they just keep pushing. It's almost like they have a drive, and they don't understand that failure is supposed to make you feel sad. They're like, no, this is, I'm growing, like I don't care,
Yep.
right? So those are all my students that learn and grow the fastest are the ones that are driven and are not set back by failure.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. A term I use a lot of times with my competitive and performance students is commit to it. I
mhm.
don't care what choice you're making in this moment. Whatever you do, commit to it.
Yep.
Because if you commit to it and it's wrong, you'll feel it and you'll learn from
Yep.
it. And if you
Yep.
commit to it and it's fantastic, then you are going to try and seek out that same feeling every single time that you're on the dance floor. But either way, it's a learning opportunity. If you don't commit to it, you're not going to know whether it was a good choice or a bad choice.
Yep. Because being
Oh, I think James is frozen.
into, yeah,
Yeah,
did
we
we cut
just
out?
skipped you for a second. You're back.
Okay. Okay, sorry. In that gray area where you didn't commit to it, that's kind of where that failure already is, like, because you didn't commit enough to it, that you're already failing at that point. So
Hmm.
you either need to choose to succeed or choose to get a better learning experience out of that, right? So it's, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Try to fail, but don't fail to try.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this Monday morning coffee talk. Um, Loved having your opinion. Loved talking a little bit more West Coast Swing Shop because I'm learning. I'm still trying to figure out what it's all about. So thank you so much. Again, you can find James on Facebook at james.cook.wcs. I'll also include the email address that he mentioned middle of the podcast in our show notes. I'm Samantha. You can find me at Love.Live.Dance at www.lovelivedance.com, on Facebook at Stout Ballroom Dance, or over on Instagram at Love.Live.Dance SLC. We do this podcast every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Mountain Time over on Twitch. So if you want to tune in and chat with us live, we'd love to have you. Next week's guest is Marcos Martinez of Marcos Martinez Dancewear. He is a Utah designer of dance attire, and he has made my last 3 competition dresses. And he is incredible. So wanted to talk to him next week about dancewear in the ballroom industry and kind of what his design process is, and all of those fun fun things to talk about. But yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you again to James for coming and talking with us. And we will see you guys next week. Stay happy, stay safe, stay healthy, and bye, guys.